Today we wanted to talk about what you guys should be seeing in your schedules that are delivered to you by your contractor. Make sure you're taking notes because you're going to want this information. So first things first, obviously you're going to want to see the labor requirements throughout the entire span of the project. You want to see when those trades are coming in. What benefit that brings to you as a client is that you're now forcing your general contractor to think through the entire project. Okay, he's not just telling you that things are going to start on this day and it's going to end on this day. He's going through the extent of planning out every single little aspect of the project. And you, as the client, you can take a look at the scope of work on the quote or the proposal he provided you with and make sure that each one of those trades line up with the proposal and the schedule. So the schedule should be having the entire scope of work, and each one of the sub trades that will be performing that work, that should be shown on the actual schedule itself. So another thing this helps you avoid is trade stacking. So you might be wondering, what's trade stacking? Trade stack is when you have multiple sub trades. Let's say your plumber, electrician, and flooring installer all working at the same time. This is not ideal, and you want to avoid this because you have a lot of potential for problems to occur on site. You may have the flooring installer finishing up the flooring, and then the plumber comes in and he's stepping all over your brand new floor. If something does happen, you're going to have one sub trade blaming the other sub trade, and your contractor is going to bring those issues to you if he's not a good contractor. Okay, so another thing you should be having on that schedule that they're delivering to you is your project phases and milestones. So there's different phases to a project. There's the pre-construction phase, there's the rough-in phase, there's the finishing phase. So you want to make sure that you have deliverables for each one of those phases. So let's say something like approval of permit set of drawings. So you want to have a specific date on when that approval has to be given by for you to submit and receive the permit by another date. Okay, so you want to make sure that all these things tie into each other. Major decisions, you want to make sure that that has a specific actual end date, or else what tends to happen is these things will drag on forever. And they should account for time for you to have the drawing set in front of you and give you time to review it and talk to your team and whoever else is a stakeholder in the project before having to give them a response back. So something you may see from a contractor that either doesn't have too much experience or doesn't want to provide too much transparency is you'll see that they won't have set deadlines. The reason for this is because they don't want to be held accountable if they're delayed. If they don't give you a deadline, how can you hold them accountable? So that's actually a perfect segue into the next point that you want to see on a schedule is a start and end date. So your project should have a start date when they're saying this is the day we're going to start, and it should have an end date. This allows you as a client to plan accordingly. If you have to train staff before your location opens, most people want to train staff for about a month. But you need to know that you're going to have a set end date, and then after a month, those staff are going to be working inside the location. If that end date drags on, you have no idea when to hire the staff, when to have them training, and you may be paying for 2 months of training when they only needed 1 month. And then you don't want to get into firing people, all that kind of mess. So another thing to remember on the start and end dates is that when they have start and end dates for each trade, that breaks the entire project for them into smaller chunks. So this allows them it forces the contractor to actually think through the entire project. Most people just kind of jot things down on a piece of paper and say, here's my schedule. You want them to thoroughly think through the entire project and give you a schedule that starts on this day and ends on this day. And you want them to also do that with their subcontractors as well. Because at the end of the day, if you have a schedule that looks beautiful on paper, but none of the sub-trades are buying into that schedule and they're not following it, it's worth nothing. So if you're a little bit unsure whether or not your contractor did a good job of breaking down everything into smaller chunks, feel free to reach out to us. We have a Discord community. One of the community members actually reached out to us with a similar situation. They had us review their schedule and just confirm if the general contractor they were using actually did a good job, breaking everything down into small chunks. And we ended up catching a few flaws, which I'm sure has helped them an immense amount now as they had their project starting. So we'll leave the link to the Discord below. You guys feel free to join that. There's a lot of people in the commercial real estate space, franchise owners, business owners, We all just talk and share tips and tricks on build outs, fit outs, and answer any questions that may arise during the construction phase. So another point that's very, very, very important. You want to make sure that in your schedule, it's set out the deliverable dates on things that you need to bring to your general contractor. So certain things, let's say like your equipment, when you need to buy your equipment, when you need to have it on site, and when it's going to go and get connected. And it's going to start working for tests to start happening and things like that. So you want to make sure that those key dates are in the schedule as well. Okay, so jumping into dependencies now. So you want to make sure that certain dependencies are inside the schedule. Things like the drywall is going to start going up before the framing is completed. That would make no sense. So you want to make sure the dependencies line up. Plumbing is done before the drywall goes in. All these little things like that. Another big point to make sure that's included in the schedule, have a conversation with your builder before starting the work and ask them if they included a float in the schedule. So what a float is an extra little bit of wiggle room and time that it gives them on the schedule that's baked into the schedule so that if something were to happen, because something always happens, it doesn't derail the project completely or push out the completion date that far. So these are things that the contractor should already be thinking about. But as a client, you can do your due diligence as well and speak to them and say, hey, is there a float included on this schedule? Or are we running things bare bones, So another important thing to include in the schedule is payment milestones. You want to make sure that the payment milestones are shown on the entire schedule. What this allows is for you to plan out your cash flow during the project. You don't want to find out that you need to pay a bill of $10,000, yet you hadn't accounted for that money for another 2 weeks. You know what I mean? So that is very, very, very important. One, because it allows the project to continually move forward smoothly because there's no delay in payments. And also it leaves you, the client, with a level of comfort and reassurance knowing that you're not going to be caught off guard when it comes to money. Another thing that I also like to tell my clients, it allows for there to be kind of like an incentive for the general contractor. When he knows that in a week, if he completes this certain set of tasks, that he'll be getting paid, subconsciously, that makes someone work a little bit harder to get the money paid out to them. You know what I mean? Things will happen a lot faster and smoother. Okay, so right now, we're actually building out a very tight-knit Discord community. You guys heard me talk about it earlier in the video. But what this is, it's a bunch of commercial business owners, commercial real estate investors, anybody who's in the commercial construction space. What this allows for us is to answer questions of business owners in construction projects. Right now, maybe they're going through some issues, or maybe they're planning a construction project 2 months down the line, and they want to do some planning ahead of time. We actually have some past clients there, so if you want to speak to them as well and get some feedback from them on their experience and what you should be looking for when starting a build, all your questions can be answered over there in that Discord. So check out the link below. That's very important. Get a hold of one of us, an email, phone number, all of that stuff. It's all down below in the descriptions, or click that Discord link and become part of the community. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Stay tuned. There's a lot more coming.